And that is He-Man stuff. A little bit slow in the virtual piano there, but whatever. I thought I would try. I'm always trying new things for attention, aren't I? But this is I was gonna do it as a live stream, but it's late at night, and I can't do a light source for a live stream. Fuck me anyway, right? Let's focus a little bit here because I wanted to talk about, much like Star Wars theory, you got He-Man theory. And what is He-Man theory? Just different theories into the world of Eternia, the what ifs and what abouts and what could have been. And I guess we could just go through so reaching into the lore. I guess you can reach into the only lore I care about is the 2002, the original Filmation, She-Ra. I would say the comic books from 2013 DC Comics, and we will skip Revelation, and we will skip the new She-Ra cartoon and the new 2020 He-Man cartoon. So we're just looking at 2002 He-Man. We're looking at 1980s He-Man, Filmation, and some of the mini comic books, the ones that came with each figure. So one that came to my mind, as you can see by the figures here, is what would happen if He-Man was created while Keldor was about to get the secrets from the Elders, the Council of Elders. Now, this is based on the 2002 concept of Masters of the Universe, the 2002 Bible. What would it have been like if Keldor had met He-Man and not Skeletor? So as you know, the story is that Keldor amassed an army. He was kicked out of Eternia, the palaces. He is the half-brother of Randor, right? So he's no longer welcome. I guess he didn't feel welcome. Between his brother Randor becoming the king eventually, right? Well, his brother became the captain. Miro was the king. And, I guess Randor had an affair with a witch, and they created Keldor. And Keldor is the half-brother. So Keldor ran off to do his own thing because he could never be a true royal blood. He's like the son of a whore, I guess, an ancient witch whore. So Keldor went to the Dark Hemisphere, amassed his army, and attacked the council. As we know in this story here. So modernizing and severing. So before Skeletor and Trapjaw, Keldor and Cronus terrorized Eternia in their quest for total domination. We know the story. Keldor became Skeletor. Skeletor was an irrational bastard. He was just insane, and that was partly because of Demo Man. I think in one version of the story, Evil Lyn helped Skeletor get his rational mind, set in place, conquering the Demo Man's maniacal tendencies. So, when you see Skeletor, he's like, Eternia will soon be mine. He's insane, right? Whereas Keldor is passionate and manipulative and shall get what he wants. And he is very much, he is sexy, he is charismatic. If I had to pick a realistic version of Keldor, it'd be like Scott Hall from the WWE, right? Somebody who is muscular but is kind of can be manipulative. And, Scott Hall kind of reminds me of Keldor before he turns into the monster, right? But He-Man, of course, is the personification of the Council of Elders, also the embodiment of King Grayskull. And King Grayskull was the ancient king that fought off Hordak and sent him into Despondos. The Snake Men were banished. So King Grayskull was a tough bastard, but he died. In the cartoon, he died. In the DC Comics, he was killed by his handmaiden. So it was a sad story either way. I think the second was probably even more sad than the first one. But they're both pretty good stories. And so his consciousness, his essence was transferred to eventually the Council of Elders in the Hall of Wisdom. But if they had created He-Man, or somehow resurrected King Grayskull, or somehow, some way, if Adam had come before Keldor had become Skeletor, or if Keldor had never decided, or let's say Keldor did try to evade the Hall of Wisdom, but never used that poison, and he had to lick his wounds and go back to the Dark Hemisphere and be locked up, what would that have been like? I mean, as there's a picture of what he would look like today, kind of aged. Anyway, that's what he would look like if he had not turned to Skeletor. If he had discovered He-Man and not Skeletor, would his first impulse to be to fight him, or would he seduce him? And I believe Keldor would have tried very much to get him on his side. Now, I base this upon Man of Steel miniseries, in which Lex Luthor was a businessman. John Byrne rewrote Lex Luthor to not be a evil, maniacal scientist with a green armor and trying to fight Superman, but a businessman. And when he staged a coup, he staged a terrorist attack on his private yacht to get Superman on his side. To say, oh, you know, how much would you like to work for me? Thinking Superman is not above working for pay, not above money, not above corruption, that he could buy anybody he wants. And I think Keldor might have been the same way. He might have been like, oh, I can get He-Man on my side. I can get him to fight for me. He has the power. Or maybe I can just get his power. But it might have been more interesting. I mean, Keldor is the master of the dark arts. Why not just take the power for himself? But the power was in a person and not merely. So the sorceress having this orb, this magic little orb given to Prince Adam, turns him into He-Man. And now as He-Man, he is responsible for protecting Eternia, being the son of Rendor. But having known the history of Keldor and the evil warriors, obviously Prince Adam is not going to take a liking to any of that. But a lot of what ifs, and I was just playing on this theory of what if Keldor had met He-Man and He-Man had not known much about Keldor. And Keldor would just say, oh, well, you know, that's what your father said. That's what everybody else says. But I'm not like that. I'm trying to fight for the good of Eternia. It's just, this is my way of doing it. And, you know, kind of the gaslighting. I believe gaslighting would have been more prominent in this version and not merely like, oh, fuck you, I'm gonna fight you, and they're fight. You know, it's like with He-Man and Skeletor, it's always Itchy and Scratchy, Tom and Jerry. You know, these two have to fight each other, right? But had the tables have turned a bit, would Keldor manipulate He-Man instead of fighting him? I think he would try. Maybe, most likely, he would probably lose. But that's just the thing. It's interesting to see these kind of what-if events. Because in the comic books, in the DC Comics last decade, we saw a version of Keldor, before he amassed his army to fight, he would get Prince Adam to, you know, to say, look, you know, you're not ready to be a great leader, you know, to have a little conversation. But nothing that led anything, because at that time Prince Adam wasn't going to be He-Man at all. He was just a prince. So Keldor had no idea of knowing anything. And to prolong his life and to get revenge upon his brother, he became Skeletor. So there was a lot of things that were in place to make sure that He-Man and Skeletor would eventually meet, and not He-Man and Keldor. But yeah, I think that Keldor would have tried very hard to get He-Man on his side, to fight for him to take over Eternia. Now, there's still more ultimate power, but it's even more than just He-Man himself. Of course, you have to worry about Hordak. But also, too, by having He-Man on his side, he would never have to have given a debt to Hordak to free him from Despondos to get him here to Eternia. So that's my theories. What are your favorite theories? I'll come up with more if you want to see more. If you have a suggestion for a theory, tell me. Comment section. There's many characters. Individual lesser-known characters, I probably would go through the mini-comics. The more popular ones, Man-at-Arms, Tila, I'd go through the more recent comic books, TV shows, and stuff like that. We can also go by some of the episodes I watched, like The Problem with Power, for example. Dragon Invasion, I don't remember much, but The Problem with Power is the one I kind of remember the most from the old series.